Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation on juicy audio design. In this work, we're going to be exploring professional audio designers' perspectives and understandings on the term juiciness and how they use it in their design process. This work was carried out by myself, Kieran Hicks, Katja, Kathrin, Gerling, and Lennart Nacke. Let's dive into it.
So what is juicy design so far? Traditionally, this has focused on primarily visual embellishments in games, so providing rich and engaging feedback to enhance player experience. The goal being to contribute to coherent game design and improving the overall feel and immersion in the game. A few works have investigated its impact in multimodal experiences. So this is including but not focusing on audio. These works suggest that integrating juicy elements across multiple sensory channels can enhance game experience. To our knowledge, there is only one paper so far that has explored juicy audio on its own, but they did so without theoretical grounding for the design of the juicy audio. So that made us curious to learn more about what makes audio juicy in particular, the goal being to understand how juicy audio is conceptualized, what makes audio juicy and what is juicy audio.
Our work has three key contributions. The first one is that we share views on how designers construct juicy audio. Secondly, we point out differences in how juicy audio is constructed and understood among the industry. And thirdly, we give specific examples of juicy audio, as well as a list of synonyms that industry participants used to describe juiciness during our interviews. So to carry out this work, we conducted a study with 12 participants. All of our participants have worked at some point or are currently working as games audio designers in an industry context. While 12 is a fairly small sample size, it makes up for it in its content depth, where we have really long interviews, upwards of an hour for most participants, where they dived into juiciness and audio design. Our participant sample comes from a really diverse background, whether that's through nationality, gender, or the type of company they work in, from AAA to AA to independent game studios. Given the interview data that we had collected, we opted to do a hybrid thematic analysis approach, where we had one coder conduct a deductive analysis on the data and a second coder independently conduct an inductive thematic analysis. The deductive thematic analysis was guided by the Juicy framework by Hicks et al. And after completing our independent coding of the data, we moved on to the next step. In this next step, we worked together to extract definitions, examples, and synonyms of juicy audio. For example, one participant mentioned how the sound would have to have a little bit of thickness and a bit of wetness in order to sound juicy, as well as the context of how the sound's being used being very important. For the next step, we went through independently and interpreted and then summarized the extracted definitions from our participants. For the second to last step, we came back together again to discuss each of the individual summaries and use that to come up with final summaries for each participant's definition. We then cross-checked our interpretations with the participants' examples and synonyms that they provided. The last step in our approach was to look at the final summaries that we had created previously and perform a content analysis on them to look for specific attributes of juicy audio to allow us to better understand how juicy audio is constructed.
In the process of doing these interviews, participants very strongly and commonly used synonyms for the term juicy, and this arose organically, so this was not something that we asked for explicitly. But they used these fully or partially interchangeably with the term juicy to describe this kind of audio. And it is noticeable that a lot of these leverage a degree of familiarity with other sensory experiences. This is the set of attributes that we were able to identify as being part of juicy audio. And you can see that many of these reoccur across the different participants. So this indicates that there is some degree of shared understanding among practitioners, even though some of them did not necessarily start the study understanding or having heard of the term juicy in this context before. The different attributes that were identified through this work can be distinguished in three different types. Number one being the purpose and perception of juicy audio. So for what goal audio designers employ juicy audio, and what is the perception of the juicy audio by the player that they aim to evoke with it. Number 2 is the technical attributes of how juicy audio is implemented, how it is realized. And then finally, the context within which it occurs and within which it must be designed to fit. Throughout all of the interviews, it was very noticeable that 3 factors kept reoccurring. And so all of our audio designers related juicy audio to at least 2 of these 3 factors in their interviews. Number 1 being the enhancement or augmentation, so juicy audio being used to emphasize player actions or certain events in the game. Number 2 being the cohesion and coherence of the game as a whole, where juicy audio is both a tool to emphasize the cohesion and coherence, but also something that needs to be designed with careful consideration of the overall cohesion and coherence so as to not break it. So this is in tension with the enhancement and augmentation. And then finally, the synesthesia, this aspect of juicy audio evoking certain other senses, was very common in how the audio designers described juicy audio and how it is meant to evoke certain experiences in the player.
The analysis and the results of our work have led to several implications, 3 of which we'd like to focus on in this presentation. So firstly, our work has some implications on the technical design of juicy audio moving forward. So we kind of now know that the importance of having audio on the full frequency spectrum, and that includes considering the shape. It also should be multi-layered, and there should be multiple aspects of that sound. So the second implication that our work highlighted is the fact that synesthesia is a core aspect of juicy audio design and one of the main things that separates it from the visual juicy design. This idea that it needs to evoke other non-auditory senses to be a juicy piece of audio. So this also came up in the synonyms that our participants expressed during the interviews, with some of them leaning very much towards that sense of touch when trying to describe audio. So they might be saying that the sound has to be rough or it has to feel thick. Lastly, our work provides the basis of comparison for visual juiciness and audio juiciness. There are many different similarities that we found between these 2 terms, such as the fact that they both place a big emphasis on being coherent or aiding the coherence of the player experience. There are some differences between these 2 terms that our results have highlighted. For example, juicy visuals place a high emphasis on highlighting information for the player. Well, it doesn't seem to be the case for juicy audio. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, then please do ask them. And if you are interested in this research, please do feel free to reach out to either me or Katja. Thank you again. See you around the conference.